your brother. He's going to die. Minho! No.
Minho woke to the sound of the ocean and Abina's soft breathing beside him. 18 months in Accra, and he still marvelled at this life. No bodyguards sleeping in the next room. No 3 a.m. calls about territory disputes. No constant vigilance waiting for the next assassination attempt. Just peace. He could walk now without assistance. His recovery had continued steadily with Abina by his side. The doctors in Ghana called it miraculous. Minho called it love. Every day with her made him stronger, more whole, more human than he'd ever been in soul. They'd married quietly 6 months ago in a small ceremony with Abina's family. Her grandmother had cried, thanking God for bringing her granddaughter a good man. Minho had felt like a fraud accepting that blessing, knowing what he'd been, what he'd done. But Abina had squeezed his hand and whispered, "You're not that person anymore. You're who you choose to be now." He'd built a legitimate consulting business, using his strategic mind to help local companies. They lived in a modest house in East Legon, far from the luxury penthouse he'd had in Seoul, but infinitely more valuable. This was a home, not a fortress. Abina was pregnant, 3 months along. They hadn't told many people yet, both superstitious about announcing too early. But Minho would catch himself staring at her stomach, imagining a child who'd grow up free from the violence that had defined his life. A child who'd never have to choose between loyalty and morality, who'd never watch their father come home with blood on their hands, who'd grow up knowing love instead of fear. This was everything he'd never dared to dream of. Then the doorbell rang at 6 a.m, and paradise ended. Minho opened the door to find Sung Min, his former bodyguard, standing on the porch. The man looked terrible, bruised, exhausted, his expensive suit torn and stained with what looked like blood. "Boss?" Sung Min said in Korean, his voice hoarse. I'm so sorry, but you need to come back to Seoul, now." Minho's blood went cold. "I'm not your boss anymore. I left that life. Your brother is going to die if you don't come back." Behind him, Abina appeared, tying her robe. "Minho, what's happening?" Sung Min switched to English. "Mrs. Choi, I apologize for the intrusion, but there's a crisis in Seoul. Min-jae needs his brother." Min-jae? Minho's younger brother had taken over the Choi organization when Minho left. They'd agreed to a clean break. Minho would walk away completely, and Min-jae would have full control. "What happened? Can I come in? Please. It's not safe to discuss this outside." Minho hesitated, then stepped aside. Abina moved closer to him, her hand finding his instinctively. Even after 18 months, she was still his anchor, his strength. Sung Min entered and collapsed onto their sofa, exhaustion overwhelming him. "Your Uncle Taewon. After you left, he spent a year building alliances, consolidating power. 3 days ago he made his move, attempted coup. He's taken over most of the organization. Then Min-jae lost. That's the business. Winners and losers." Minho's voice was cold, but his heart was racing. "He didn't just lose. Taewon has him. Has your mother too. He's holding them hostage, using them to legitimize his takeover." Sung Min met Minho's eyes. "He's going to kill them in 72 hours unless you come back and publicly surrender your claim to the family." Abina gasped. Minho felt the room spin. His mother, the woman who'd raised him, who'd understood when he needed to leave, who'd blessed his marriage to Abina even knowing it meant losing her son. "Why does he need me? I left. I have no claim." "Because the old guard still sees you as the rightful heir. You were your father's chosen successor. You walked away, but you didn't die. As long as you're alive and free, you're a threat to Taewon's legitimacy." Sung Min pulled out his phone, showing Minho a video. It showed Min-jae, bruised and bound to a chair, with Taewon standing behind him holding a gun to his head. Taewon spoke directly to the camera in Korean. "Minho, I know you're watching this somewhere. You ran away like a coward, abandoned your family for some African whore. But blood calls to blood, doesn't it? Come back to Seoul, kneel before me, acknowledge my leadership publicly, or I'll kill your brother and your mother, and every person who ever served your father." The video cut off. Minho stood frozen, his hands clenched into fists. 18 months of peace shattered in 30 seconds. Abina touched his arm gently. "Minho? I can't. His voice was raw. I can't go back to that world. I left. We built this life. Your mother and brother will die, Sung-min said quietly. I flew 18 hours to find you. I've been searching for 3 days. No one knew where you'd gone. I finally bribed someone at the Korean embassy who remembered processing your wife's name change. He looked at Abena. I'm sorry to bring this to your door, but if Minho doesn't come back, his family dies. And if he does go back... Abena's voice was steady despite the fear in her eyes. What happens to him? Taewon will kill him. Eventually. Maybe not immediately, but he can't let Minho live once he's publicly surrendered. It would be too dangerous. So either way, people die. Abena looked at her husband. Either your family or you. Minho closed his eyes. He thought about his mother, who'd never asked him to stay, who'd told him to choose happiness over duty. About Minjae, his younger brother who'd accepted the burden of leadership so Minho could be free. About the baby growing inside Abena. About the life they'd built. About everything he'd finally found. There has to be another way, he said. There isn't. I've thought about this for 3 days straight. The only way to save them is for you to come back. Sung-min stood, swaying slightly from exhaustion. I'll give you time to think. But boss, Minho, you have 68 hours now. After that, they start dying. After Sung-min left to find a hotel, Minho and Abena sat in silence on their sofa. She held his hand, her thumb tracing circles on his palm. You have to go, she said finally. No, I won't leave you. I won't leave our baby, I won't... Your mother will die. Your brother will die. Everyone who served your father will die. She turned to face him. You won't survive that guilt, Minho. It will destroy you. Destroy us. Going back will destroy us too. You know what that world is. You know what I'll have to become. Then we find a third option. Her voice was firm. We don't just surrender. We don't just let him win. We fight. Abena, I can't ask you to... You're not asking. I'm choosing. She placed his hand on her stomach. I'm choosing for our family. For your mother who welcomed me with open arms. For your brother who protected you when you left. We don't abandon family. Minho felt something break and reform inside him. I left that world to protect you. And I married you knowing who you were, all of you, the Mafia boss and the man who chose love over power. She kissed him softly. Now we choose both. We save your family and we come back here together. It's not that simple. It never is. But Minho, you learned to walk again because of love. You escaped Seoul because of hope. You built this life because you believed in something better. She met his eyes. Now we fight for it. Not by running, but by facing it head on. He pulled her close, breathing in her scent, memorizing the feel of her in his arms. If we do this, if we go back, there's a chance we don't make it out. Then we better be smart about it. She pulled back, and he saw determination in her eyes that matched his own. You're the strategic genius who built an empire. Use that brain. Find the way to win. Before we continue with this impossible situation, I need to know where you're watching from. Seoul, Accra, Lagos, New York, London. Drop your city in the comments because part 2 of Minho and Abena's story is reaching people everywhere, and I want to see where you all are. If you watched part 1, let me know what you remember most. And if you're new, welcome to a story about love, loyalty, and the prices we pay for both. Minho spent the next 12 hours on the phone, calling old contacts, gathering information, piecing together the situation in Seoul. What he learned wasn't encouraging. Taewon had planned the coup carefully. He turned most of the organisation against Minjae by spreading rumours that Minho's abandonment proved the family was weak. He'd made strategic alliances with rival gangs, promising them territory in exchange for support. He'd isolated Minjae's supporters, arrested or killed the most loyal ones. The organisation Minho had built was barely recognisable. But there were still people loyal to the old guard, still people who remembered what the Choi family had been before Taewon's takeover. People who'd served Minho's father and saw Taewon's coup as a betrayal. Minho gathered them on encrypted calls, building a coalition in secret. By the time Sung-min returned the next morning, Minho had the outline of a plan. I'm not surrendering, he told Sung-min and Abena over breakfast. I'm going back to Seoul, but not to Neil. I'm going to take back the organisation. Sungmin nearly dropped his coffee. Boss, that's suicide. Taewon has the numbers. Taewon has people motivated by fear and greed. I have people motivated by loyalty and honour. Different currencies. Minho pulled out his laptop, showing them a map of Seoul with marked locations. Taewon is holding Min-jae and my mother at the old warehouse in Incheon, the one my father used for off-books meetings. He thinks I don't know about it because it was before my time. How do you know? Abena asked. Because my mother mentioned it once years ago. Said my father liked places with multiple exits. This warehouse has 4. Minho zoomed in on the map. Taewon chose it because it's isolated, easy to defend, but isolation cuts both ways. Hard for help to reach him, too. You're planning a rescue. Sungmin's eyes widened. Boss, even if we get them out, Taewon will hunt you forever. You'll never be safe. Which is why we're not just rescuing them. We're ending this completely. Minho's voice went cold, and Abena recognized the tone from stories about who he'd been in Seoul. Taewon wants a war. I'll give him one. But it'll be the last war. After this, the Choi organisation transitions to legitimate business entirely. No more violence, no more territory disputes, no more of this cycle. The family won't accept that. The family will accept whatever I tell them to accept, because I'm going to remind them who I am. He looked at Abena. But I need you to stay here, stay safe. If this goes wrong, I'm coming with you. Her voice was absolute. Abena, you're pregnant. Which is exactly why I'm coming, because our child deserves to know both grandparents, deserves to have their father come home. She took his hand. I'm not staying behind wondering if you're alive or dead. We do this together. It's too dangerous. You learned to walk because I was there. You escaped Seoul because I gave you a reason to. You think you can do this without me? She smiled slightly. I'm your miracle, remember? Your strength. You don't leave your strength behind when you go to war. Sungmin looked between them. She has a point, boss, and honestly, having Mrs. Choi there might help. Taewon sees her as a weakness. He won't expect her to be part of the strategy. Minho wanted to argue. Every instinct screamed to keep Abena far away from this, but he also knew she was right. They were stronger together. Always had been. Fine, but you stay in the secondary position. You don't engage directly. The moment things go wrong, Sungmin gets you out. Understood? Understood. She kissed him. Now tell me the rest of the plan. They flew into Incheon Airport 48 hours after Sungmin's arrival in Accra. Minho used a false passport, one of several he'd kept for emergencies. Abena travelled under her real name, betting that Taewon wasn't monitoring for her. Seoul hit Minho like a physical blow, the familiar streets, the language, the energy of the city. He'd thought he was done with this place, thought he'd never feel its pull again. But walking through Gangnam with Abena at his side, he felt something unexpected. Not longing for his old life, but determination to end this chapter properly, to save his family and close this door forever. They stayed at a small hotel in Itaewon, far from the neighbourhoods where the Choi organisation operated. Sungmin had gathered a team, 12 men loyal to Minho's father's memory, willing to risk everything for one last mission. The plan was simple in concept, complex in execution. They'd hit the warehouse at dawn, when Taewon's guards would be at their most tired. Sungmin's team would create a distraction at the main entrance, while Minho and 2 others entered through a side access point his mother had described. Get Min-jae and his mother out. Confront Taewon. End this. The night before the operation, Minho couldn't sleep. He stood on their hotel balcony, looking out at the Seoul skyline, when Abena joined him. Thinking about tomorrow? She asked. Thinking about everything. How 18 months ago I couldn't walk. How you kissed me in that cafe and changed everything. How we built a life in Accra. He pulled her close. Thinking about how much I have to lose now. Then we make sure we don't lose it. She was quiet for a moment. I called your mother. Minho stiffened. What? How? What? Sungmin got me a number. One of the guards Taewon has watching them is secretly loyal to your family. He let me speak to her for 2 minutes. Abena smiled. I told her we were coming, that her son was bringing me to meet her properly this time. What did she say? She said she always knew you'd come back, that you were your father's son. You'd never abandon family. Abena's eyes glistened. She said she was proud of you, for choosing love, for building a new life. And she said to tell you that whatever you have to do tomorrow, she forgives you. She understands. Minho felt his throat tighten. I don't deserve her. You deserve love. You deserve family. You deserve happiness. Abena turned him to face her. Tomorrow you're going to save them. Then we're going to go home to Accra. We're going to have this baby. We're going to live the life we've built. This is just a detour. What if it's not? What if I can't? You stood up in that cafe 18 months ago because I kissed you. Your legs worked because your heart was strong enough to fight for love. She placed his hand on her stomach. Your heart is even stronger now. Fight for this. Fight for us. He kissed her, pouring everything he felt into it. Love, fear, hope, determination. I promise, he whispered against her lips. I'm coming back to you. We're going home. Dawn broke over Incheon with a grey, overcast sky. Minho stood with his team in an alley 3 blocks from the warehouse, doing final weapons checks. He felt strange holding a gun again after 18 months of peace. Abena was in a van 2 blocks away with a driver ready to evacuate the moment things went wrong. She'd argued to be closer, but Minho had been firm. Their baby's safety came first. Everyone clear on the plan? Minho asked in Korean. The 12 men nodded. They were older, veterans who'd served his father. Men who understood loyalty ran deeper than fear. We create chaos at the front, Sungmin confirmed. Flashbangs, smoke, make them think we're a full assault team. You go in the side, get the hostages, get out. We retreat and Taiwan thinks he won. And then? One of the men asked. Then we finish this my way. Minho checked his watch. Move in 5 minutes. Remember, non-lethal if possible. These are our people Taiwan forced into this. We don't kill unless we have no choice. The 5 minutes felt like hours. Then Sungmin gave the signal, and chaos erupted. The front of the warehouse exploded with sound and light. Flashbangs, smoke grenades, shouting. Taiwan's guards scrambled, thinking they were under full assault. Minho and 2 men slipped through the side entrance his mother had described. The door was unlocked, just as the loyal guard had promised. They moved through the warehouse silently, avoiding the main floor where the commotion was happening. The hostages were being kept in an old office on the 2nd floor. Minho climbed the stairs, his heart pounding, his legs steady. 18 months ago he couldn't have done this, could barely stand. But Abena's love had healed him, made him whole. He'd fight with every ounce of that strength now. The office door was guarded by 2 men. Minho recognized one, Park Ji-hoon, who'd served his father for 20 years. Their eyes met, and Minho saw the conflict in the older man's face. Ji-hoon, Minho said quietly in Korean. You know me. You know my father. Is this what he would have wanted? Taewon said you abandoned us, that you chose a woman over family. I chose peace over violence, but I came back for my family when they needed me. That's what my father taught me. Family first. Always. Minho lowered his gun. I don't want to fight you, but I will if I have to. Let me through. Ji-hoon looked at his partner, then back at Minho. Finally, he stepped aside. Your mother is inside. Your brother too. They're weak but alive. He paused. Taewon is on the main floor dealing with the attack. You have maybe 5 minutes. Thank you. Minho moved past him into the office. His mother was tied to a chair, bruised but conscious. Minjae was in worse shape, clearly beaten multiple times. But when they saw Minho, relief flooded their faces. You came, his mother whispered. Always. Minho cut her bonds quickly, then moved to Minjae. Can you walk? I'll crawl if I have to, Minjae said, his voice hoarse. Brother, I'm sorry. I should have been stronger. Later. Right now, we move. Minho helped them both stand, supporting his brother's weight. His mother was steadier, straightening despite her injuries. They made it down the stairs and were almost to the side exit when Taewon's voice echoed through the warehouse. Minho, I know you're here. You think I didn't plan for this? Minho froze. Ahead of them, the side exit was suddenly blocked by guards. Behind them, more were emerging. They were trapped. Taewon appeared from the main floor, gun in hand, smiling. You always were predictable. The noble son who can't abandon family. I knew you'd come. I was counting on it. Let them go, uncle. Your fight is with me. My fight is with your father's legacy, with the weakness that says love and loyalty matter more than power. Taewon moved closer. You proved it perfectly. Gave up an empire for a woman. Came back alone thinking you could play hero. I'm not alone. Minho's voice was steady. And you've already lost. Lost. I have you surrounded. I have your family. I have... The warehouse lights cut out. Emergency lighting kicked in, casting everything in red shadows. And through the doors, through the windows, came more men. Dozens of them. Not just Sungmin's team, but others. Old guard, young recruits, people from every level of the organization. People loyal to the Choi family. To Minho. Daijung, one of the senior lieutenants, stepped forward. Taewon, you're outnumbered. Stand down. You dare? You took power through fear and betrayal, but the family remembers who led us with honor, who built this organization into something that mattered. Daejung looked at Minho. We may have followed you reluctantly, Taewon, but we'd die for him. One by one, Taewon's guards lowered their weapons. They were outnumbered 5-1, and they knew it. The coup was over. Taewon's face twisted with rage. This isn't finished. He raised his gun toward Minho. Multiple weapons trained on him instantly, but he wasn't aiming at Minho. He was aiming at the door where Abena had just entered, unable to stay away when she heard the commotion. You want to know what weakness looks like? Taewon snarled. This! Time slowed. Minho saw his uncle's finger tighten on the trigger, saw Abena's eyes widen, saw his mother move toward her, and he ran. 18 months ago, he'd been paralyzed, unable to walk. But love had healed him, had made him whole, had given him strength he'd never known he possessed. He reached Abena a split second before the gunshot, pulling her down, covering her body with his own. The bullet that would have hit her center mass grazed his shoulder instead. The warehouse erupted. Sungmin and 2 others tackled Taewon, disarming him. The remaining guards surrendered immediately. It was over. If you're feeling this story, if you're on the edge of your seat wondering what happens next, hit that subscribe button right now. Because the aftermath of this rescue will test everything Minho and Abena have built. Drop a comment. Should they stay in Seoul or return to Accra? What would you choose? Let me know your thoughts. Minho's shoulder wound was superficial. The bullet had grazed rather than penetrated. But Abena insisted on treating it herself at the hospital, her hands shaking as she cleaned and bandaged it. I told you to stay in the van, he said softly. I heard gunfire, I thought... Her voice broke. I thought you were dying and I wasn't there. I'm here. I'm fine. We're all fine. He cupped her face. Is the baby? The baby's fine. I'm fine. We're all fine because you threw yourself in front of a bullet for me. Tears streamed down her face. Again. You keep saving me. You saved me first. In that cafe 18 months ago. Everything since has just been me returning the favour. His mother entered the hospital room, bruised but smiling. The doctor says Minjae will recover fully. Mostly exhaustion and dehydration, a few broken ribs. He's asking for you. Minho stood to go, but his mother stopped him. First, I need to say something. She looked at Abena. Thank you for bringing my son back. Not just today, but 18 months ago. You gave him a life I never could. You made him happy. Mrs. Choi. Call me mother. Your family. She took both their hands. Now there's a decision to be made. The organization. Taewon is in custody. The family is asking what happens next. Minjae leads, Minho said immediately. He was doing it before the coup. He'll do it again. Minjae says the family won't accept him after he lost control. They want you back. His mother's voice was gentle. They're asking you to stay, to lead like your father did. Minho looked at Abena, seeing the fear in her eyes that she was trying to hide. No. Minho, I gave 18 months of my life to this organization. I built it from my father's legacy into an empire. But that empire cost me everything. My health, my humanity, my peace. He squeezed Abena's hand. I found all of that in Ghana. With her. I'm not giving that up again. Then what happens to the family? The family transitions. Minjae leads, but not a criminal organisation. We go legitimate, all of it. Use the resources, the connections, the money we've built, but for legal business. Minho's voice was firm. I'll stay for 6 months. Help with the transition. Make sure Taiwan's supporters are dealt with appropriately. But then I go back to Accra with my wife and my child, and I don't come back. His mother studied him for a long moment, then smiled. Your father would be proud. Not of what you built, but of what you're choosing to walk away from. That takes more strength than staying ever would. Will the family accept it? They'll accept it because you're giving them a choice, evolve or die. The old ways are ending, Minho. You're just brave enough to acknowledge it. She kissed his forehead. Go talk to your brother, then take your wife somewhere nice for dinner. You both deserve it. Minjae was sitting up in his hospital bed when Minho entered, looking battered but alive. The brothers stared at each other for a moment. Then Minjae spoke first. You came back. I didn't think you would. You're my brother. Of course I came back. Even though I lost control, even though I couldn't hold the organisation together without you. You didn't lose control. Taiwan staged a coup. Those are different things. Minho sat in the chair beside the bed. And you held out for 3 days waiting for help. That takes strength. I'm not strong like you, never was. Strength isn't about never falling. It's about getting back up. You'll get back up. Minjae was quiet for a moment. The family wants you to stay, to lead. I know. I'm not going to. I figured. Can't say I blame you. Minjae smiled slightly. You found something better than power, something I'm not sure I'll ever find. You will, when you stop looking for it in this world. Minho leaned forward. I'm staying for 6 months to help transition the organisation to legitimate business. Then I'm going back to Ghana, to my wife, my child, my life. But during those 6 months, I'm going to teach you everything I know. Not about running a criminal empire, but about leading with honour, about knowing when to fight and when to walk away, about being strong enough to choose peace. Why would you do that for me? Because you're my brother, because you protected our mother when Taiwan took over, because you deserve a life that's about more than just surviving. Minho stood. And because someone has to lead this family into the future, might as well be someone who actually cares about the people in it. Minjae's eyes glistened. I don't know if I can do this without you. You won't be without me. I'll be a phone call away, always. Minho gripped his brother's shoulder. But you need to stand on your own. Lead your way, not mine or father's. The family needs that. What if I fail? Then you fail, but you fail trying to build something better, not just maintaining something broken. Minho moved toward the door, then paused. For what it's worth, I think you'll be a better leader than I ever was. You actually care about people. I just cared about winning. That's not true. It was true, until Abena showed me different. Minho smiled. Find someone who makes you want to be better, Minjae. Someone who sees you, not the organisation or the power or the legacy. That's when you'll truly be strong. The next 6 months were intense. Minho worked 18-hour days restructuring the Choi organisation, liquidating the illegal operations, investing in legitimate businesses, creating systems that would sustain the family without requiring violence. It was harder than building the criminal empire had been. Changing an organisation was always harder than creating one from scratch. But slowly, painfully, it worked. Abena stayed in Seoul with him, her pregnancy progressing. She insisted on being there, on meeting the family, on showing them that she wasn't a weakness but a strength. Minho's mother doted on her, treating her like the daughter she'd never had. Minjae grew to respect her insight and intelligence. The family accepted her because she refused to be anything but herself. No apologies, no pretending to be something she wasn't. Just Abena, a woman from Ghana who loved their former boss enough to follow him into danger. By the end of 6 months, the transition was complete. The Choi organisation was now the Choi Corporation, a legitimate business entity with investments in technology, real estate and consulting. There were still connections to the old world, but they were fading. Minjae had grown into his role. He led with a combination of his father's strategic mind and his own compassion. The family prospered under his guidance in ways they never had through pure criminality. Taiwan was in prison, facing multiple charges. He'd spend the rest of his life there, a warning to anyone else who thought betrayal was worth the risk. On their last day in Seoul, Min-ho stood on the balcony of his old penthouse, the one he'd lived in before the paralysis, before Abena, before everything changed. It had been maintained but felt like a museum, a monument to someone he used to be. Abena joined him, her pregnancy now visible, their daughter. They'd learned she was a girl, moving inside her. "Any regrets?" she asked. "About leaving?" "None." He turned to her. "This was necessary. I had to close this chapter properly, make sure my family was safe, give them a path forward. But it's not my path. Not anymore." "And your path is in Accra?" "My path is wherever you are. But yes, I prefer it to be in Accra, where I'm not a crime boss or a reformed criminal or a legacy, where I'm just Min-ho, your husband, our daughter's father, a consultant who helps businesses succeed legally. No more drama, no more danger, no more people trying to kill you? Can't promise that. I've made enemies, but I can promise I won't go looking for trouble." He placed his hand on her stomach, feeling their daughter kick. "I just want peace, want to watch our daughter grow up, want to grow old with you. Is that enough?" "It's everything." She kissed him. "Let's go home." They landed in Accra on a sunny afternoon, the heat hitting them like a warm embrace. Min-ho breathed deeply, feeling tension he'd been carrying for 6 months finally release. This was home. Not the penthouse in Seoul with its luxury and danger, not the compound where he'd grown up learning to be hard and ruthless. This modest house in East Legon, where neighbours waved hello and children played in the streets, and violence was rare. Their daughter was born 3 months later. They named her Ji-sun, combining Korean and Ghanaian traditions. Min-ho's mother flew in for the birth, staying for 2 months to help. She and Abena became inseparable, 2 women from different worlds united by love for the same man. Min-jae visited twice that first year, marvelling at how different his brother looked. Relaxed, happy, playing with his daughter, without the weight of constant vigilance. He returned to Seoul each time more determined to build the kind of life where that peace was possible for everyone in the family. The consulting business Min-ho had started before the Seoul trip grew steadily. Word spread about his strategic brilliance, and companies throughout West Africa sought his expertise. He built a reputation not on fear or power, but on results and integrity. Abena returned to school, studying part-time for her master's degree. They hired help for Ji-sun, wanting to give their daughter the advantage of education they'd both valued. On their 3rd anniversary of arriving in Accra, they returned to that cafe in Itaewon where it all began. Not the same cafe, that had been in Seoul, but they'd found a similar one in Accra, and it had become their place. Min-ho watched Abena sip her coffee, Ji-sun sleeping peacefully in her carrier, and felt overwhelming gratitude. "What are you thinking?" Abena asked. "That 3 years ago, you kissed a paralyzed stranger in a cafe and changed everything. That you saw something in me worth saving when I'd given up on myself." He took her hand. That going back to Seoul was the right choice, but coming back here was the better one. "We saved your family. You saved me. Multiple times. In that cafe when you kissed me. When you convinced me to run away to Ghana. When you came with me back to Seoul even though you were pregnant and terrified. When you showed me that strength isn't about violence or power, it's about choosing love over fear. You make it sound so romantic. I just kissed a random guy to escape debt collectors." "Best random kiss in history," he grinned. "Changed my life, healed my body, gave me a future I never dreamed possible." Ji-sun woke up, making small sounds. Abena lifted her from the carrier, and Min-ho watched his daughter's eyes, his eyes, focus on him with complete trust. This was power, not ruling an empire or commanding fear, but being loved, being trusted, being present for the small moments that actually mattered. His legs worked perfectly now. No cane, no pain, no limitation. The doctors in Ghana had finally admitted they had no medical explanation for his recovery. Min-ho didn't need one. Love had healed him. Abena's love, his family's love, his daughter's love. That was miracle enough. That's Min-ho and Abena's story. the Mafia boss who learned to walk again and the woman who healed him. They tried to escape, got pulled back into the violence, and found their way home again. If this story moved you, I need 3 things. First, hit that like button. Second, subscribe, because there might be a part 3 if you want to see what happens when Ji-sun grows up in this unique family. Third, drop a comment. Would you have gone back to save your family? Or would you have stayed in safety? What would you have chosen? Remember, some debts can't be escaped. Some loyalties run deeper than fear. But the strongest bonds aren't built on obligation, they're built on choice. Minho chose Abina, she chose him. Together they chose a life that was about more than just surviving. Sometimes the greatest victory isn't winning the war, it's knowing when to walk away from the battlefield. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is choose peace over power, love over legacy, and a quiet life with someone you love over an empire built on fear. This is the story of a second chance at life, at love, at everything that matters. Of a man who learned that true strength isn't about standing when others fall, it's about standing with the person you love and refusing to fall at all. Thanks for watching part 2. Let me know if you want part 3. I'll see you in the next story.